Some people walk into your life only to be forgotten. But there are others, who, even by simply mopping a hallway, can make an entire corporation take a long, hard look at itself. Today, you'll hear a story not about power, but about dignity. And sometimes, what transforms an entire system doesn't come from the CEO's chair, but from the mop held in the hands of a black mother. Because people like her are too quiet, too invisible, and most of all, they don't sit high enough for us to look up to them. Like Martha, a black woman in her 60s, small in stature, silver strands in her hair. She showed up when offices were still dark, and left long after the lights had gone out. She was the janitor at the Sterling and Rowe headquarters, a prestigious financial firm in the heart of downtown Chicago, a place where conversations were measured in numbers, worth was weighed in Ivy League diplomas, and greetings came in steel-cold handshakes. Every day, Martha walked past luxury offices, wiping down desks where men in $1,000 suits typed with the confidence of kings. No one asked her name. No one knew if she was tired or well. All they knew was, when they arrived, the office was clean, and when they left, it still smelled like floor polish. But that morning, something changed. Martha arrived earlier than usual. It was the day the company would welcome a new CEO. A figure whose identity had been kept strictly confidential. The executive board wanted everything to be flawless. No dust, no mistakes, no signs of imperfection. She was scrubbing the 12th floor lobby, where the welcoming ceremony would be held. Her hands trembled slightly as she pushed the cleaning cart. Her knees ached again from the change in weather. Then, Gregory Vaughn appeared, the senior operations director, a white man in his 40s, always seen in a blazing red tie, shiny leather shoes, and a frightening habit, treating others as if they were beneath him. He scowled as he saw Martha crouched near the staircase by the front entrance. And instead of stepping gently past her, he slammed his heel on the marble floor and snapped, "Hey, what the hell are you doing? You trying to dirty my $1,200 suit?" Startled, Martha turned and bowed politely. "I'm so sorry, sir, I just need a few more minutes to finish this area." Gregory narrowed his eyes and looked her up and down, as if she were something that didn't belong in his perfect picture of the day. "Trash like you should know better than to be on this floor in the morning. This space is for people who matter, not for people like you to stain it." The lobby fell quiet. A few junior staff members stood awkwardly, eyes darting away. Some looked confused, some bowed their heads, and one woman behind a glass door covered her mouth and cried in silence. But Martha quietly gathered her mop, turned around, and walked away, slow, without a word. Only her eyes, deep and still, like a forgotten lake, remained. No one knew that the woman they just humiliated, Martha Jackson, was the biological mother of the incoming CEO, and the ceremony that morning would reshape the culture of Sterling and Rowe forever. Not because of a speech, not because of media appearances, but because the truth would be revealed in a way no one saw coming. 9 a.m., the clinking of glasses, the sharp rhythm of high heels on marble, and corporate pleasantries floated through the grand 12th floor hall. Fresh flowers everywhere, welcome banners, and carefully made-up faces sporting the classic, corporate smile, half warm, half calculating. Gregory Vaughn, now wearing a royal purple tie, the traditional color of the board, stood near the podium like he was the main attraction. In his hand, the printed guest list of executives and department heads. Bolded among them was a fresh, curious name, Evelyn Jackson, Chief Executive Officer, CEO, Sterling and Rowe Group. Gregory squinted. The last name Jackson sounded vaguely familiar, but he brushed it off with a smirk. Another one of the board's diversity picks. Don't tell me they've filled their quota again. At the far end, near the service door, receptionist Olivia watched the hall, but her eyes didn't settle on Gregory or the sharply dressed executives. They stopped on a woman in a janitor's uniform, standing quietly in the hallway, still holding her mop. Her worn-out shoes looked like they didn't belong in a place so bright and polished. Martha. Olivia had witnessed everything earlier that morning. Gregory yelling, insulting Martha with venom, and since then, a quiet unease had settled in her chest. Why didn't she speak up? Why didn't she fight back? At the very least, why didn't she defend herself? But then, Olivia looked into Martha's eyes, and she understood. It wasn't fear. It wasn't submission. It was the calm of someone who was waiting. For something greater. 10 a.m. The elevator doors slid open. The room fell still, as if an invisible presence had entered. A woman stepped out, early 30s, hair tied high, tailored black suit, a face both calm and striking. She didn't need an entrance. No fanfare, no entourage, but every eye turned to her. No one in the room had seen her before. Yet one glance was enough to know. This was not someone ordinary. She walked straight to the podium. No announcement, no music, only a small bronze nameplate already waiting. Evelyn Jackson, CEO. Gregory froze. Jackson? Evelyn? A newly appointed financial executive he'd never seen. Never heard of. What is happening? Evelyn began her speech. Sharp, confident, concise. She didn't speak of financial strategy. She didn't recite profit charts. She told a story. When I was 6, my mother worked as a school janitor. She woke at 4 a.m., worked until 10 at night. She didn't have a college degree. No one greeted her when she walked into a room. But from her, I learned my first lesson in leadership. Suffering in silence doesn't mean weakness. And respect is not bought with titles. The air grew heavy. Some looked down. Some began glancing nervously around. Gregory Vaughn started to sweat. I'm not standing here today to immediately rewrite our financial policies. I'm standing here to remind you. A company's culture does not begin with what's written in its files, but with how you treat those who offer you nothing in return. Then, the back doors of the room opened. Martha Jackson walked in, still holding her mop, but this time, her eyes looked forward, not away, not down. Evelyn paused, turned toward her mother, smiled. The entire room fell into a stunned, deafening silence. Gregory stood frozen. The woman he had called garbage, who should know her place, was none other than the mother of the new CEO, who now held full authority over staffing, operations, and the power to fire him. Silence blanketed the entire hall, as if someone had just drained the oxygen from a room filled with power. Martha Jackson stood there, the same mop still in her hands. But this time, her eyes were no longer quiet. They carried the gaze of someone who had seen, who had endured, and now was rising. Evelyn stepped down from the podium. She walked toward her mother, each step deliberate, proud, yet humble. The room seemed frozen as the two women stood side by side. One, the newly appointed CEO. The other, the janitor who had been publicly humiliated just hours ago. Two roles, two worlds, yet bound by something far greater than status, a mother's love. Evelyn turned back to face the crowd. I know, some of you feel uncomfortable right now. Some of you are hoping I'll keep this matter private, to protect the image of this company. But it's exactly this kind of silence that allows injustice to thrive. She pulled out a folder from her file. An email requesting that Martha be kept away from the event area. Security footage and audio from the 12th floor that morning. And prior incidents, recordings of Gregory loudly berating janitorial staff, calling them names like filth and leeches on society. Evelyn looked Gregory Vaughn straight in the eye. Mr. Vaughn, I used to believe you were a man of efficiency. But today I understand why this company, despite high profits, has lacked its most critical asset, dignity. Gregory tried to force a smile. Ms. Jackson, I didn't know she was your mother. I didn't. I was just. Evelyn cut him off. Her voice was calm, but sharp as a blade. And if she weren't my mother, would degrading a black cleaning woman like that be acceptable to you? Gregory fell silent. She turned to the entire staff. I don't need people who lower their heads to keep their seats. I need people who stand up when others are being stepped on. Not because of their titles, but because they are human. No one dared to breathe. Some hung their heads in shame. Young employees welled up with tears. And Gregory trembled, his eyes darting as if looking for a way out. Evelyn walked closer to him. I'm not firing you today, but you will no longer serve as chief operating officer. Instead, you'll be reassigned to the basement restroom department. For 1 week, the entire hall gasped, not out of revenge, but so that you may understand this. A mob never diminished anyone. Only how we look at it reveals the truth about ourselves. A few claps broke the silence. Then more. Then a thunderous applause erupted. It was no longer applause for a new CEO. It was for a reawakened sense of values. Martha cried, but not from pain. This time, her tears fell because, for the first time ever, someone had stood up for people like her. And that someone was her own daughter. After that ceremony, Sterling and Rowe was never the same. Gregory Vaughn quietly left the hall. Gone was the arrogant posture. Gone were the swaggering gestures. A week later, he returned, in a janitor's uniform, pushing a cleaning cart floor by floor. And for the first time, he bowed to Martha. Not out of fear, but out of something far more meaningful. Respect, the kind he once thought beneath him. And then, small changes began to ripple outward. Janitorial staff were listed by name on the internal HR roster. No longer, cleaning staff number 1. Number 2. The break room for support staff was renovated, air conditioning, personal lockers, and a new sign that read, "Thank you for keeping this space clean." Evelyn launched a new column in the company newsletter called, "The Groundkeepers," highlighting unsung heroes of the organization: security guards, drivers, janitors, logistics crew. Martha continued her daily work. Still sweeping floors, still taking out the trash, still walking the gleaming halls each morning. Only now, people smiled when they saw her. Someone handed her a hot cup of coffee. Someone else asked, "How are you today?" And one young intern, the very one who stayed silent that day, mustered the courage to say something Martha would never forget. "Thank you. Because of you, I've learned. Never underestimate someone just because they move in silence." Evelyn didn't stay at headquarters for long. After 3 months of bold reform, she handed day-to-day operations back to the board and stepped away to lead a personal project in her mother's name. The Martha Project, a scholarship and vocational training fund for older Black women seeking work opportunities after the age of 50. When asked why she left, Evelyn simply smiled and said, "I don't need to stand in a building to make an impact. I just need to stand on the right side of history." The story of Martha, the elderly janitor once dismissed and humiliated, who turned out to be the CEO's mother, spread across news sites and social media. Some called it a slap in the face of the privileged. Others called it a well-earned lesson in humility. But Evelyn wrote only one quiet line on her personal blog. "Justice is not about striking down. It's about lifting up, not silencing others, but helping those once silenced finally speak." Sometimes, fairness doesn't come wrapped in expensive suits or eloquent speeches. It comes from a hand calloused from years of holding a mop, yet never letting go of dignity. From a woman who taught her child to be a good person before being a great leader. And from a story that leaves every listener asking, if I met someone like Martha in real life, how would I treat her? Rock racism, discrimination, and racial inequality aren't just legal issues. They're matters of the heart. Red heart, and sometimes, the ones we look down on are the ones who teach us life's greatest lessons. Have you or someone you love ever been judged because of how you look, where you come from, or the color of your skin? Let this story be a reminder. True worth doesn't need to shout. It just needs to stand firm. Speech balloon. Share this video if you believe everyone deserves respect. Outgoing mail. Comment below, because your story might just inspire thousands more. Bell. Subscribe to Social Justice to follow more powerful stories that break stereotypes and expose injustice. Where every video is a small step toward a more just world. Because change doesn't start with a crowd. It starts with one voice brave enough to rise. And that voice could be yours.